Hi, everybody. I'm Haley Mitchell Haugen. I'm the editor of Sheila-Na-Gig Online and Sheila-Na-Gig Editions. And tonight we are here to celebrate the work of Alaskan poet Vivian Faith Prescott and the release of her amazing collection here of the Tide books. Very excited and honored to have Vivian here tonight. And then we have a selection of readers from our fall 2025 edition of Sheila-Na-Gig Online. So welcome, everybody. So talking to Vivian, how excited I am to be able to offer this book to the world after she's been a regular contributor to Sheila-Na-Gig Online, getting to know her work and her through there. It's always exciting to take that relationship to the next level here. I'm going to read the little description of the Tide book at the back of the book here. It says, the poems in the Tide book are a lyrical record of living beside the Pacific Ocean while caretaking for an aging father. Poet Vivian Prescott lives on the small island in southeast Alaska, tucked into the Alexander Archipelago in I don't know how to pronounce it. I know you can help me out. Tlinket-Ani?
Tlinket Ani.
Ani, Tlinket Ani. Okay, thank you. She's living at her fish camp in Wrangell. And also a wonderful, wonderful big long word there. How do we pronounce that one?
Chhikara.
Chhikara. When the COVID-19 pandemic hits and shortly thereafter, her father is diagnosed with a rare bladder cancer. As the ocean becomes a persona, a way through which to see her world, the relationship with her father and the ocean deepens, the daily rhythm of tidal life becomes what sustains her. Just nicely encapsulate that, and you're going to hear all that in the poems as well. So Vivian Faith Prescott was born on her island in Wrangell, Alaska, southeast Alaskan, also known as the Inside Passage. She writes and thrives at her family's fish camp next to the sea, on the land where she lives. She's a member of the Pacific Sami Survey and a founding member of the first LGBTQIA+ group on the island. She's the author of more than a dozen books, including poetry, fiction, nonfiction, and the co-founder and co-facilitator of two Alaskan writers groups, Blue Canoe Writers and the Drumlin Poets. Sorry for butchering all those wonderful place names. Us down here in the lower 48. All right, so Vivian, welcome. So excited to have you here and hear you read these poems tonight. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. And yeah, your name, Haley Mitchell Haugen. Mitchell is my dad's name, my dad's name. So my son's name too. So we've got Mickey's in our family that comes from that name. I organized this reading kind of about the idea of beachcombing. So I was kind of inviting everybody to go beachcombing with me, not in real life really, but just to get these poems out into the world. And so I wanted to read some that I haven't read at other readings, and some that I think there's a couple that are in here that have never, I saved for, a collection and didn't publish them. But yes, I was born and raised in Wrangell, and the Tlingit name for Wrangell is Chhikara. So it is hard to say, but it's an island that's shaped like a snow goose, flying to the Stickeen River flats. So we're very close to the fastest flowing navigable river in the United States, and that's the Stickeen River. And my children and grandchildren are ravens, and they belong to the Tucktain clan, and their origins are from a little bit north here from Glacier Bay. And I think there's at least a couple writers here from my writers group. Kirsten's here and Bonnie's here, and I want to acknowledge them for coming. Then I have to give them gold stars now for showing up, I think. But anyway. So this is a Tide book. This little thing is what you put in your pocket, and you take fishing with you, and it has a fish on there that you can tell if the bigger the fish gets, the better the fishing. And this is kind of what I wanted to call the book, was the Tide Book. And I had a conversation with my dad about, before he passed, about naming it, the Tide Book. And he thought it was a brilliant idea because I figured people will Google looking for their fishing tide book and get this, right? Instead. So maybe they'll make a mistake and I'll sell lots of copies, I told him. So that's why we called it the Tide Book. And he took these small tide books and wrote lots of notes in them and stuff. And we are actually in this Tide Book. We're featured in this Tide Book. So that's a real accomplishment for me in life. I am in the Tide Book. Kind of like being in the phone book. And the cover art is Joanna Perea. She's an artist from Wasilla, and this is fiber art. So that's why if you touch it, it kind of looks like it's fuzzy because it's that fiber art. And she has Ebb and Flow Arts is the name of her studio. And I think Haley mentioned that I could talk a little bit about the book. I just want to make sure that there's prose poems, there's postcard poems in here, and each section is divided into tide term themes. And so we're going to do a little bit beach combing here. And I'm going to give you a poem. I will read this poem, which kind of, I think, is the theme for the whole collection. And this one was written, what I do for our writers groups is we word stitch. So you guys might want to take notes. This is a really fun prompt to do. Is each member of the writers group randomly chooses a couple of words, and then we all make a list from everybody's words. And you can get them out of a dictionary, out of a science book, we're just like right there. Okay, choose 2 words. Anybody's poetry collection, your old poems. And so you end up with this list. And the challenge is to use all those words, usually that you have about 10, 12 words in a poem or prose if you're in a group that writes prose. So, and we give ourselves gold stars if we use all the words. Now, I've never actually given anybody a gold star, but we give them, in our imagination. So, and this one that I'm going to read, I think I was looking at it. Well, which words were the word stitch? Because I'm using words that I probably never would have thought of using, and in ways that I never would have thought. But I think radio, camo, crimson, and contract. And the idea of a contract is what gave me the idea of this poem. It's called The Agreement. Crows' static caws bid their good night like radio chatter, and I am tuning in to the day's end. The local flock is heading to their roost, but stop for stale breadcrumbs dotting my porch railing next to the sea. I am set back from the edge on a rickety camel lawn chair in front of my cabin, sitting so still as not to scare away the birds. The evening light fades to crimson as a large raven joins in on the beach below, gathering tumbled bread. This is my ordinary life here, uncaged by office or children, living with the spiral of tide and wind and sea. Time here wavers and flows like a rack line, leaving seaweed piles and threads of fishing line and bits of broken shells. My small cabin is part of this contract of intentional simplicity. I've settled for this, and it's fine print. A single black feather from an old crow is shed at my feet, flutters in wind, lifts as if it knows its path, blows across the porch, and drifts toward me. So you might have heard the words in there. And I'm going to show you a couple beach combing things because I'm sure Kirsten can appreciate this because she brings stuff home too from the beach. These are birds. Look isn't that cool? Wouldn't you put those in your pocket? Yeah, I put these kind of things on my desk. So anyway, yes, you don't need anything but pockets really to go beach combing. And this next one is My relationship to the ocean is spiritual and physical, and I don't swim very well, but I always wear a life jacket. If you're with me and out on the boat, I'm going to make you wear one. And if you put on social media that you're kayaking and or canoeing and you're or on standing up on one of those sups, I feel I'm morally obligated to tell you to put a life jacket on. Okay? Yes. That's what. Anyway, but bathymetry is the name of this poem, and bathymetry is basically seabed topography and the measurement of, river bottoms and lake bottoms and streams and things like this. Bathymetry. I convince myself it's spring and walk my water body into the sea. This Alaskan island tradition is as old as my purple urchin-shaped scarred knee, where I fell off my bike at 7 years old, turning a corner too fast on a gravel road. Now donned in barnacle shielding shoes, shorts, and a t-shirt, my body is a bathymetric map, a seafloor relief. Above me, a bald eagle screeches like an echo sounder. The pulse of his cry reaches me. As I wade past my knees, the cold sea numbs toes and my swishing hands. A scar on my ring finger stings from a careless wash across a broken window when I was a teen. They say any seafloor is less measured than the planet Mars. And here I am wading to my waist, pinging scars across my body familiar, where I've mapped slopes and an oceanic trench that's birthed my young, and a seamount scarred by stretch and movement like a seafloor plate. The final dunk is the bravest part of this cold dip ritual. Breasts and shoulders now submerged. My scarred arm and my dented skull have long been my companions. I turn on my back and float face up, knowing my skin is not a protective membrane, but a sieve, and a sense that indeed this ocean knows my every depth and slope and all my channel walls, while the chill of brine rushes into me with its shudder and thrill of an ancient blood memory. So, yes, sometimes I go in the water and it's really cold in Southeast Alaska. So, my next thing I'm going to show you is the coolest thing on my desk. Look at that. That's a holdfast. It's dried and it was once connected to a bull kelp. So the bull kelp head is not here, but this is pretty darn cool. It's been sitting for a long time. So yeah, sometimes the things I bring home are too big for pockets, right? So I got to carry it home. Yeah. Anyway. Like I say, I know my friends can appreciate this, my sister too. And this next poem is, the form is called a bop. And if you are poets and haven't written a bop before, it's a recent invention created by Alpha Michael Weaver during a summer retreat of the organization Cave Canem. Not It's not unlike a Shakespearean sonnet in trajectory. The bop is a form of a poetic argument consisting of 3 stanzas, each stanza followed by a repeated line or refrain. So first you'll have the first stanza is your problem. The second one is exploring that problem. And the third stanza is whether or not you can resolve that problem, and you don't have to. But if you have a poem that has a lot of interesting language, or maybe a poem that didn't go anywhere yet, I would get it out and try the bop, because they're actually fun to write. And this one has a lot of language play in it. But it won second place in the Joy Harjo Poetry Award from Cutthroat Journal of the Arts. It's called Island Water Quality Report. Our water faucets drip yellow, splash brown, and plop out occasional trout and allowable contamination. Our teeth and hair shine with disinfectant, and so do our liver, kidneys, and nervous system. We cook it up and sip it up and spin it with our hoodies and underwear. Island communion, we drink from it. We get high south of town, Wrangell Mountain, 2 reservoirs, high vulnerability rating, heavy metal high, high for nitrates and bacteria and virus. Take a sanitary survey, stay informed, form a band on this rock and call it water supply. We swallow it and sing it, take short showers, no fertilizers or pesticides, pick up dog poop, adopt a watershed, make a flashy flyer, flush tap water for 30 seconds before using. Island communion, we drink from it. Water scent, treat the drink that stinks of halocetic acids and total trihalomethanes. Infect with disinfect. State official mentions older folks risk cancer. Gives example of bladder cancer. Now my dad lies still under the contraption radiating his bladder and does weekly chemo. They tell him for the procedure to work, he must drink more water. Island communion, we drink from it. And I used documents that we were given, the public was given from the city for forming that poem, because I'm not quite that smart with the science there, but it's fun to take government documents and mess with their language, so. And this, oh, beachcombing, look at this. This is a bull kelp, and look how it's dry. Completely dry. This would have been on top of that, like that other one. And so this bull kelp, you can make rattles out of them. And of course, if they're nice and fresh and you harvest them from the sea, you slice them and you can make pickles out of them and salsa, chop them up for salsa. But this is a bull kelp. That's my prized possession too. So yes, my prized possession. Wait till you guys see my rocks. I got lots of rocks. Anyway. And the next poem I have, if you have the book, this poem is on page 60, Unruffled Acoustics. And when Haley was talking about, being at a beautiful place and things going on around you, that's exactly what this poem is about. And it's my guilt of dealing with that. And not that my life is perfect, but I do live in a very nice place, but how I deal with those things. And so this is a poem called Unruffled Acoustics. One day I went out into the heartbeat of the world and listened for the faint sound of the fairy fly and the echo of the blue whale. Today I figured living a good life was about listening. The lull of waves, the yapping neighbor's dog, the crows laughing in the spruce behind my cabin. The day wandered along with sound, whirled itself up in wind and rain, shuffled along the deck with the scrape of bench and bucket roll. The uproar of the world also went on around me, the bulge and pulse of war and virus, gunshot and startle. Yet there I was, a part of it all, tucked into the shoreline, hunkering down, pulling the wool of evening over my own pulse. And when I settled in and shook beach sand from my sheets, petted the dog's nose goodnight, there was not one shiver of knock or image of rocking sea, but only a faint thought that I was certain would not rustle up in the morning, that all day, though I leaned and listened into the whoosh and whistle and thud, sound-sensitive creature I claimed to be, I heard nothing. Oh, that's kind of my guilt poem. And I wanted to show you something that this is really cool. It's a burl. Look at that. Logs wash up on our beach, and I used to send my dad down with his chainsaw when the tide went back out and the logs were stranded to go get these, cut them off the log, and then we would make these burls, you can see. And then and I have them hanging on my wall, so I'm like living in a a house with burls growing off, growth off the walls. And I have a poem called, which this one is about my dad and the art that he did, making things for me. He said he was never not an artist, so but I guess I convinced him. And it's called You Are Here. Humans press red ochre handprints to cave walls, carved spirals, and a raven stealing the sun in glyphs on the beach near town. My 83-year-old father uses a black Sharpie and writes his initials on his Pen 49 salmon reel, on his axe handle, a hand sander, a chainsaw, and on his red lunch cooler. He etched and painted a salmon on the end of a canoe paddle and hung it on the wall. And he still carves cedar pegs, a lost art, because no one uses them to fish for commercial salmon anymore. He says salmon love the cedar scent and will bite on a herring bent with a peg. Father, you are here now, although the art of leaving your body has slowed. The doctor said it could be months before the cancer takes you out in the skiff to the fishing hole in the sky, as we've been naming death, as if we're lucky, as fishermen often are. Maybe you'll have a year. In your lifetime, you left your imprint on almost everything. Across our island, you built signs, cabins, and trails, picnic tables, and outhouses for the U.S. Forest Service. But there's not an artistic bone in your body, you say, while sanding a burl to hang on an outdoor wall. And some days, my ears dangle and sway with green, beady-eyed hoochie squids that you fashioned into earrings for me from your salmon trolling gear. I like that poem. Yes, you can like your own poems. Did you know that? You can like them. Okay, what do we got for you? For beach coming. Oh, yes. I have a rock. See? Look at this rock. If it has a white quartz all the way around, unbroken, we call it a wish rock. And you throw it back into the ocean, we make a wish. Of course, you never tell anybody your wishes, but so that's unbroken white lines around a rock is a wish rock. Now you're going to see them everywhere. Okay, we got Send It to the Moon. Now, I was told before that you only get 4 exclamation points as poets in your lifetime to use, right? I was told that by somebody. And I think I've used mine up now, but this, I never use exclamation points. But this poem has an exclamation point in the title of all things. And it's called Send It to the Moon, exclamation point. And it's or I dedicated it to my father, was in hospice at home. And the hospice for us on this island doesn't mean what it means in the lower 48. I found out, we're not talking about the same thing. We don't have that kind of hospitals or facilities or nurses or infrastructure. And my dad didn't want to go into the hospital, so whenever might mention he was in hospice, I just meant I was the hospice and my sister helping out and my brother. So he was here and we did everything until the end, and the doctor visited once a week. So this poem was written one day when I was taking a short break because we have little cabins, and my dad was in his, my brother was taking care of him, and I went over to my cabin, and I came back, and this story, of course, I had to write everything down. Send It to the Moon for my father in hospice at home. Who trimmed the wick of my father's mind as he awoke after a day of cancer stupor and doze? My brother flicking the TV remote to find a movie lit up the screen with a listing of a documentary about the moon. Let's send the smokehouse to the moon, my father declared from the rocket that is his recliner. For a moment, confusion whirlpooled its thick fog in our cabin until my brother said, "But Dad, send the smokehouse to the moon? There are no fish on the moon." My father, always the problem solver, the expert builder of custom smokehouses, the fisherman who can carve a one-eyed little Joe or bend a Huna spoon and slice a thin cedar peg to curve a herring to swim in perfect salmon-catching symmetry, said to my brother, "For the moonfish, of course. When the tide is coming in during a supermoon, I've seen herring dance glinting on the surface of sea. So don't moonfish exist? Can't they exist in the memory of the dusty moon and in the radiant orb that is now my father's fish-loving brain?" And so, while having coffee this morning, my own mind invented a rocket to carry a smokehouse to the moon. There, I set it up on the edge of our physical body's cosmos, and I summoned all the flashing moonfish, and me and my father followed a thread of earthlight, trolled our skiff across the wide expanse of the known sea. This poem I actually took a line from an old book and use it as the first line, and so the trimming of the wick is a old public domain line. Anyway, reinvented. And I'll show you after that. What do I show you? Oh, so we have a garbage dump beach, an old one. We don't throw our garbage on the beach anymore. It was decommissioned in the 50s on our town, and I forage on our garbage dump beach. Yes, I have my tetanus shot too. And I go on the garbage dump beach, and I made this spruce tip ferry out of all the pottery. So I collect sea planks on the beach. So I beachcomb for those, and then I put these, whatever, I make all kinds of stuff. And I put them, and then I sell them and give the money to our food bank. That's the idea, because I believe it or not, I have totes of stuff. So this one here is a spruce tip fairy. She's got a little basket made of old fishing line. Her hair is old fishing line I found on the beach, and she's got a cup handle, arms. Cup handles make really good arms. I do have a tote of stuff that says body parts. So if anybody in law enforcement went in there, they would look in that tote. Oh my gosh, she gets body parts, but they're actually sea pottery and sea glass that look like body parts or could be body parts. So anyway, so that's what I find on the beach is that. My sister can attest to my collecting of interesting things from the beach, from the dump beach. Okay, we have I could probably end, or how am I doing on time? I got one more here. Okay. This poem, if I had to pick a favorite poem that I've ever written, it's in here. And it's called Grandmothers Are Cliche, because I was told by one of my MFA mentors, who's since passed, but he'll forgive me and I'll forgive him. I was writing a poem about my ancestor grandmother who would have come over from Sapmi, the Sami area in Scandinavia. And he had told me that, and I wanted to write more poems about grandmother. And he said, grandmothers are cliche. And I thought, what? And I think he didn't want me to write about him. But maybe he did, and he just challenged me and knew I was going to write about him anyway, and that would make me write about him, right? So I wrote this poem, and you can, there is a couple of me's in here, but this is pretty much grandmothers I know or know of, and but I'm in here. You'll just have to guess which ones I am. But it's hard to read because it's a prose poem. It does take up a little bit of time, but hopefully you'll listen really close. Grandmothers are cliche, said a writing mentor. Grandmothers crochet and take in 4 grandchildren and give their daughters breathalyzers before they can see their kids. Grandmothers write copy for Amazon. Grandmothers have PhDs and MFAs and take care of their PTSD soldier husbands who return from Iraq kicking and screaming at them, pulling the covers to hide in the dark. Grandmothers' houses are robbed by their meth head grandsons. Grandmothers sift through the garbage dump on the beach for tossed away metals and broken glass to make art. Grandmothers weave dance robes. Grandmothers are CEOs, signing $1 million language revitalization checks. Grandmothers carve dance masks from alder. Grandmothers harvest fireweed and mountain goat hair and pull cedar bark from trees. Grandmothers blow deer calls made of leaves. Grandmothers play with Ouija boards. Grandmothers fish for salmon. Grandmothers hunt moose. Grandmothers teach 2nd grade. Grandmothers gut deer. Grandmothers lie on the muskeg on their bellies picking cranberries. Grandmothers fall in love with the young men who work around their houses for the summer. Grandmothers chop wood. Grandmothers practice tsunami evacuations. Grandmothers fall in love with women who sculpt owls. Grandmothers. Grandmothers wipe blueberry-stained fingers and blood from their hands, periods flowing and ending, salmon hearts pulsing in their palms. Grandmothers clutch their empty bellies. Grandmothers fill them up. Grandmothers trace scars across their chests and comets across the sky. Grandmothers hold grandfathers or grandmothers in the blue dark night. The blue dark night holds grandmothers. Grandmothers carry grandchildren to medevac planes. Grandmothers feed great-grandfathers, feed grandkids and great-grandkids. Grandmothers join wet t-shirt contests, wash faces of their brain-dead sons, and slice open halibut. Grandmothers change flat tires on Honda Fits. Grandmothers love the scent of outboard exhaust. Grandmothers offer salmon casseroles at the thresholds of the newly deceased. Grandmothers remember names and then forget names. Grandmothers read Mad Magazine. Grandmothers stand in the dark with one another listening for the humpback songs. Grandmothers love their beer. Grandmothers collect porcelain Japanese dolls in glass boxes. Grandmothers march through town carrying signs to save rivers, stop dams, and mining. Grandmothers wear hoodies. Grandmothers wear brown rubber boots. Grandmothers smoke cigarettes next to grandkids while eating Mystic Mint cookies and watching Fox News. Grandmothers pick the tails off thousands and thousands of shrimp. Grandmothers sigh when herons fly close to their heads. On the beach, grandmothers trip on slick, wet rocks and fold themselves into holy rites, slicing their cheeks on Ignis. Grandmothers lie there waiting in the tidal interval for the duration of rise and the duration of fall. So I'll end with that one. That's my take that, you mentor. But Derek, I know that he probably did it so that I would actually write something. So.
Thank you so much, Vivian. That's one of my favorite poems. I think you know that. We have been enjoying the poetry of Vivian Faith Prescott from her new collection, The Tide Book. So very excited to celebrate this book today. And I got to, do a little brag and say, I collect art by writers, and Vivian put up a little call for people to look at her little creations on her ceramic art creation. So I have a Vivian Faith Prescott whale and also a jellyfish made out of her beach mosaic. And I just love them. I prize them. And I hope you're all jealous. And the fact that she gives that money back to her local food bank is just, just says so much about you, Vivian. Just wonderful. So buy her book and support Vivian Faith Prescott because she supports lots of other folks with her efforts. So thank you so much, Vivian. We're going to change gears now and move into our invited mic portion of the reading. We have a handful of writers from our fall 2025 issue, and Richard Hedderman's going to jump us off there. Thanks, Richard.
Thank you, Haley. I really appreciate the opportunity to read. Vivian, I love the poems. I lived on the coast of Maine for 10 years, And I did a lot of beachcombing. So I love the beachcombing poems. And I compelled myself to swim in the Atlantic Ocean in July and August, which is the only time you can do it. I don't know how you can go into that water off the coast of Alaska without a dry suit. You can't imagine. So you have my undying admiration for that one. And wonderful poems. I truly enjoyed them. I'm coming from Milwaukee. And I have two poems in this issue. I'll read first one called Tell the Wind. Tell the wind that television is a mirage in the wasteland of the living room. Tell the wind it sounds like rain when I listen to the evening news, a dense, tireless downpour. Tell the wind. Tell the wind that the thistles have learned to divide into stars, that the moon tugs stones into the shallows. Tell the wind. Tell the wind that by dawn the rain will have stopped counting the roads, that the grass already misses its long fingers. Tell the wind that we worship in a temple, and it is a temple of knives. Tell the wind. Tell the wind that in war there are never two sides, only one, and it is suffering. Tell the wind when the desert opens its salty mouth, hawks rise to comfort the dead and grieve the living. Tell the wind that the exiles' flags burn in pure oxygen, that at night the birds return to the leaves of the Bible. Tell the wind as it hunches the backs of the hills with snow, that the scarecrow remains lashed to a snow fence with cords of blood. Tell the wind it shrouds the dead locomotives with gravel and rust. Tell the wind that sparks are weeping from the welder's torch. Tell the wind you must taste the silt in the tiny river of your own wrist. Tell the wind to hum through the barbed wire. And that's the first poem in my next book, which is coming out from Finishing Line Press probably about this time next year. I'll put that in the chat. And then the second poem I have in this issue of Sheila-Na-Gig is called Entropy, and this is a true story. And it comes with an epigraph. Entropy, the measure of a system's thermal energy that is unavailable for doing useful work. I flunked chemistry junior year of high school, a stain on my permanent record which left an indelible blot to dog or even hound me through miserable decades of failure to launch a career in the field. It could have been all the daydreaming I accomplished that year, harder than it sounds, what with Sister Thomas carrying on endlessly about acids, nucleotides, the monatomic ion, while perversely refuting Planck's constant and touting with fiendish devotion the practical applications of the null hypothesis. She yammered, I stared out the classroom window, watching clouds huddle in the flat sky above the football field, where they part and run patterns, rolling and tumbling over one another, then meet and separate with astonishing fluidity. And I would augur in their vaporous writhings a brilliant future for myself, the way oracles of old would divine the outcome of battle in the entrails of a hen. I gazed languidly at the sky and saw for myself an astonishing life ahead, where I would at last grasp the concept of the free radical, then fail stunningly to great acclaim, then fail again with lavish abandon. So I decided to learn whatever I needed to pass, then made myself scarce before they could teach me anything more about cluster compounds, noble gas, or weak acids, about entropy. Thanks. And thanks again, Haley. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Haley, for publishing my poems in Sheila-Na-Gig. I'm Tim Mayo from Brattleboro, Vermont, and I'm going to read two poems. The first poem is from this issue, and the second poem is, I believe, the very first poem I ever published in Sheila-Na-Gig. The Anthropology of Old Age. Recently, I've passed into a neighborhood where everyone knows their neighbor. Wrinkles populate their faces like tribal scars, although for the most part, their eyes are bright as ever. They're friendly and very talkative. Still learning their language, I say little. I smile, make an occasional commiserative grimace, mime all the expected gestures that come with words. They, in turn, seem patient, attentive to my clucks and shrugs, as if they know in the end validation courses through my veins, accepting them as they are, despite the hesitance of my voice. Evening comes, the daily chatter ends, and everyone retreats inside, counting in silence the days that are left. I am still learning their mating habits, though progeny is no longer their purpose, learning the attitudes toward their now grown young, and those little people with large eyes who curl into their laps like folded hands. My second poem is an elegy for a friend of mine. Her name was Patricia Fargnoli. She was the poet laureate of New Hampshire for a number of years. And it's entitled June Burial. At last, June seeds its drooping peonies to the black army of ants, and I am trying to think what flowers come next in this sad season. I've always loved lilacs, but we're way past their time, and way, way past forsythia, spackling the rising whips of their stalks with yellow petals before disappearing into the green tardiness of leaves. Why am I going backwards like those flowers which blossom before leafing and choosing with each bloom an earlier time? Soon I will arrive back at the point of your leaving, where no flowers bloomed, both of us staring at the bare back of March as we try to pass it by. Me thinking of summer, you, the impending black ants searching for the cancerous sweet nectar of sleep, while we still stamp our feet in the snow. And so I conjure up bumblebees curling their awkward, furry bodies into the rumpled sheets of dying peonies. And we are back in June, and I am at your grave with a woman I love by my side. I am so glad for her friendship since I've lost yours. So glad for that long stretch of time I've known her, dating back beyond so many seasons of peonies, forsythia, back as far as my adolescence. My God, a woman I've known that long? I can almost say I grew up with her, even though I've never grown up. She's not a lover, nor a wife. She is here for you, dear friend, and perhaps for me too. I would offer you her sorrow, her solace, along with my grief, if I could. I would offer them in a bouquet alongside the transience of these daylilies with their long necks leaning over the road we've traveled, as if curious to see which way we came, which way we've gone. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name's Bunny, and Hayley, thank you so much for having me on this evening, and I'm so pleased that I found Sheila-Na-Gig a couple of months ago. I have one poem in, and I'd like to share that one with you. It's called Two Good Women. How quickly things changed that day. The cat, one moment engrossed in grass, the next turning broken somersaults on the asphalt, the casualty of some driver's inattention, and me heading to the store, fretting about tariffs and the stock market, how I can never clear my left nostril, all erased by this cat's frantic spinning in the road. A car stops on the median, and in the time it takes me to park, a woman is carrying the tomcat to the trees. She's professional, checking for a pulse, fingers at his throat. He is long and grey, back legs twitching, his mouth a mess of too many teeth, his head a collapsed cake of blood. I've got a gun in the car, she says. Under my palm, the cat's shoulder is warm, and I cannot help but think how on any other day he would so object to my invasion of his wild space. By the time she's back, he's dead. And all afternoon I am deterred by the knowledge death will come for me, not hit in the head by a Ford Maverick, but likely a slow death, captive in some nursing home, an inane TV show buzzing in the background, and praying the bored and jaded nurses will have driven on and left just two good women behind. One with a warm, wide hand on my shoulder, her voice low, words unintelligible but kind. The other heading to her car, gone to get her pistol. Thank you, Hayley.
Hello, I'm Cora McCann, Liderbach from Lakewood, Ohio, and I'm so happy to be here. Thank you very much, Hayley, for choosing my poem with your co-editor for this edition. It is called Jurassic Bark. We track her changing shape from glass to churn to chop below our cliffside condo. What swims beneath Lake Erie's surface bewitches my husband, who dreams of wrestling and releasing a huge sturgeon. Their young are loosed into the Maumee River each year to migrate downstream to Erie. I find the fish strange, unchanged from Jurassic times. They can grow to 20 feet, live 150 years. Bony scoots armor their backs, bellies, and sides. Their barbels tickle riverbeds, their snouts snuffle lake muck for snails, worms, and crayfish. I root for their safe passage. The prehistoric prowlers siphon invasive zebra mussels, transport freshwater mussel larvae to battle algae blooms. This lake feels like home to us, a fitting place to scatter ashes. I hope to rest in Erie sediment. My husband yearns for a sturgeon to vacuum up his ashes, roam our lake's benthic zone, leaving more ashes to drift into roaring Niagara, tumble her thunder into Lake Ontario, float eastward on the St. Lawrence River, chill for a spell in her estuary, then spill into the ancient brine where life began. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jean Biegun from Davis, California. And thank you, Haley. It's my first time in Sheila-Na-Gig, and it's a big honor for me. And thank you, Vivian. The best poetry reading I think I've ever heard in my life. The deepest and most meaningful. Okay, this poem is called Conversion Factor, and it starts with a mathematical formula. Conversion factor. Force equals mass times acceleration, expressed in units called newtons. After you've run so many miles, you can multiply that total by 1.6093 to know your distance in kilometers. The conversion factor, X, is important. So, when you slap your love or get slapped by them with, say, 2 newtons of force, what might be the factor for measuring how long that act will be remembered? 3.0281 perhaps? If 2F times X equals years until they're gone, you're gone. In addition, if a red mark that creates an increase of 10 degrees in skin temperature is caused by so many newtons, can we say that the length of time equals rise in heat times amount of lost love? And finally, what might our formula for forgiveness be? Could a total of 1,200 scattered minutes in a musty confessional convert to healing 3 square inches of blue bruise? A drawer of journals, bins of empty bottles, hotline calls, therapist bills, lists of gut-wrenching amends. Could these add up to cool the hot wound that traveled in 1 second through 1 billion plus cells and hid someplace deep? And the second one starts out with an epigraph. It was in my second book, Edge Effects, put out by Kelsey Books last year, and I'll put that in the chat. And Kelsey nominated this one for the Pushcart too. Legacy. Look at the birds in the sky. Are you not worth much more than they are? Matthew 6:26. I've been pondering this cloth of God lately. It seems to matter now. The fabric, dark night blue and endless, spreads out on the sewing table. Straight pins holding paper patterns in place. I notice its surface is smooth, and tiny red and yellow splotches dot the deep color, like comets and flashing asteroids. My mother died recently. The thin tissue paper that traced her hospital gown is gone. The pins taken too. My own dress, matronly calf length and loose fitting, sags with me. I wish the cloth were softly quilted, lined with warm flannel, and I could be cradled in it Maybe we are small planets, locked in orbit rotation. Maybe only the animals are free, I wonder, as the plain brown sparrow launches from the feeder, arcs over a broken branch, and grabs a ready updraft. Is it wrong to want a life without pins? A form that can fly pattern free? Must we be loved so very much? Thank you.
Such tender poems, Jean. Thank you. And thank you, Haley. This is the first time I've been presenting for Sheila-Na-Gig, and I'm just really delighted. My first poem was actually an ekphrastic poem. I had seen a sculpture. It was probably a little taller than I am, and it reminded me of a piece of burnt wood. So I wrote this poem called Blessings from the Char, and it's about my stepson's house burning down. So this is Blessings from the Char. After flames licked the walls, danced up the stairs in a fiery tango of devastation, engulfed their vacant beds, a grateful community wrapped them in a shawl of compassion. Memories and milestones, teddy bears and timberlands obliterated by the winter blaze that spared the donation shed, where for years they collected essentials to help those in crisis. When fate turned the tables, past recipients of rice, diapers, boots, placed their own feet in these scorched shoes, surrendering hard-earned greenbacks to ensure their benefactors had food in their bellies, clothing on their backs, and a place to throw their bones down. This family never expected anything in return, more than happy to help a neighbor. And Vivian, I hope that grandpa poems are not cliche. This is a piece from my book, Belly Dancing in a Brown Sweatsuit, that just published by Kelsey earlier this year. And this is called Learning How to Eat Lobster with Grandpa. We bonded over dismantling defenseless boiled shellfish, sucking Land O'Lakes off our fingertips. Our 53-year gap closed the moment we fastened on plastic bibs with giant lobbies on the front, and he launched into crustacean instruction with his rich French-Canadian accent. Steakhouse onlookers absorbed his meticulous tutorial, imitating him as he twisted off each tiny leg, bid farewell to the thumbshell, dipped the delicacy into melted butter, and relished each luxurious bite, blissful even as bits of meat flew off my pick into his lap, unbridled laughter erupting from both sides of the table. Thank you.
That was lovely, Elaine. Hello, my name is Garima. I'm joining you all from Bangalore, India. Thank you, Haley and Sheila-Na-Gig, for this opportunity to read today. The poem I'll be reading today is called The Year of Snake, the Year of Krodhi. It's a reflective poem. There's a Sanskrit phrase in it, Krodhi Samvatsara, which means countless years. Here it is. The year of snake, the year of Krodhi. It was once the year of monkey, now it is the year of snake. The year of Krodhi Samvatsara. The year that bites into our skin, our bones deep within. From it oozes the venom of pain, of karma, of awakening, of memory, serving us right. This ear demands we question ourselves as it sees us walking blindfolded to the cries of war, poverty, narcissism. The ear of destruction, humanity, sensibilities, willpower, with gunpowder and flare strikes. The ear of words reaching us from decades. The year I read Emily Dickinson, A Little Madness in the Spring, is wholesome even for the king, but God be with the clown who ponders this tremendous scene. The year of anarchy, of puppetry, of war, a poisonous madness clutching the air, drifting across every border. The year you and I cannot separate ourselves from those on the other side of the equator, where the breath is also a gunpowder stink. Like children, I questioned what it means to be here myself, caught in the webs of adult words, words of disarray thrown at us like random pollen in the wind, the self-probing, the blame for failing to grasp the meaning. The year we voted for inaction, handing ropes to the manipulators, the memory erasers. The year we decided not to be political, socialist, a philosopher. The year we built machines more powerful, more like us. Or so we thought, creations once unfathomable. We kept rebuilding, unable to abandon them. The year I read Picasso, art is never finished but abandoned. The year we let our narratives, deliberate, planned lies, numb the gutting cries through blasting fog, ignorance, grief. The year we let it all get lost amidst our own struggles and chaos, the chaos that flows inside. Everyone's got their problems. We whispered to the wind we shared with them, with no one, with ourselves. Like the year before, and after, and after. The year of hope, of compassion, of love. The year calling for us to pause, to listen to its sublime silence through the echoes of all the conflicts and wars. The year with scales of anger scrawls with urgency, wraps us only to slip by slowly as our eyes stay glued shut. Thank you so much.
Hello. Hopefully y'all can hear me. I'm still muted. I'm Morgan DePue, and I am coming to you from the northwest corner of North Carolina, in the Appalachian Mountains. Thank you, Haley, for this opportunity, and thank you, Vivian. That was such a wonderful reading, and all the readings tonight. My poem in this issue is called Aftermath, or The Fragmenting of Time Following a Police Shooting. It is January, and time drifts in scattered snowfall and sleet. My partner says the panther was a premonition of our neighbor's death. The black cat he'd reportedly seen simply a message coded in the primal fear of falling prey to something unseen. It is December 2022, and time falls soft like rain at dusk. I am walking with a crochet bag full of cookie tins. A white-haired man offers me a ride, asks if my car broke down. He's concerned because he's seen me walking, but never with my pocketbook. I decline. These tins are for other neighbors. One day, I wish I'd given him a tin of cookies. It is January 2024, and time moves with the cold front, and my street is blocked by cops who refuse my right of passage. The news gives more answers than they do. I am told 3 times by the officer, fueled by his own ego and rage and fear, that he can call an ambulance if I need medicine so bad. Find another place to sleep besides your home. I've seen these things last for days. Nothing can disturb the 3D scanning equipment currently mapping the crime scene. It is summer, and time burns in the furnace of the sun. A white-haired man says, "Hot today," as I walk the road. It is January, and time freezes and thaws, ignoring thermodynamic laws. A different officer will help me, along with 2 others. Passed between 3 sets of hands, I walked home long after dark. The man who walks me home is firm but kind. They do not want me to see what I do not see, which is evidence of how long he'd been left in the road. I don't look left, only ahead, though, the periphery. Before my house, 2 deer paws watch us approaching. It is fall, and time clashes in lightning fracturing. A white-haired man smokes a cigarette by his truck. There is a pistol on his hip. It is January, and time drifts in scattered snowfall and sleet. My partner and I walk to retrieve my car from the other side of the crime scene, the road, our road. On the way, there's the place. The darkened grass gripping what remains. My partner leaves tobacco on a sheaf of weathered pine, sprinkles tea for a safe journey. Moments are numb, fragmented, consequential, and insequential. In 2024, I wish I'd given him a tin of cookies.
Hi, I'm Penelope. I'm down in Los Angeles County. And my poem in this issue of Sheila-Na-Gig is called Red Door. And this was written in Northern California in Mendocino County. I should not be northbound on this 2-lane road so late at night after lingering with friends on ocean bluffs. Mine is the only car on Highway 1, and the deer knows I am out of place, half blind on the curves, but she stops partway across, lets me pass. Miles later, the skunk I barely miss writhes on asphalt as I skid by, wondering if he's rabid or horny or claiming this small piece of planet for his own, his raised tail a territorial exclamation point. Up a side road, I retrace the route I took that afternoon, but it all looks different in the dark. I park where I might have parked before, walk through a gate I don't remember, pray there are no dogs or shotguns here. And there's the icy cabin, unfamiliar in the fog, known only by its blood-red door. I had the chance 9 years ago to go to Southeast Alaska, stayed in Chhikara for 2 weeks near my stepdaughter, and then took the inland passage up to Skagway and stayed at a place called Alderworks, Alaska, which is a retreat for writers in an area called Dai. So this poem is called What Passes as Night. This night does not convince. It never settles down. No matter how late I go to sleep or how early I wake, the light outside's crepuscular. When the ice melted, it took the darkness with it, sent it down creek, down river. Only a little remains in the fur of the black barn cat running through half-light across a field, snow glimmer tucked under his chin. Thank you.
Thank you, Penelope. We have been listening to some really lovely and powerful and heart-wrenching poems tonight. Wow, from this edition of fall edition of Sheila-Na-Gig online. Just really some amazing stuff tonight, everybody. So thank you for being here. And we had some amazing gifts from the sea and gifts of poetry from Vivian Faith Prescott, sharing her work from the Tide book, now available from Sheila-Na-Gig Editions. And you can check us out at SheilaNagigblog.com. Thank you, everybody, for being here.